everybody, it's Thursday.
And welcome to this week's edition of the Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily.
And look at what we did. We put a big crappie back here.
In the last few episodes since the move, we have been kind of poking fun at our wallpaper background, which honestly still exists behind us.
Yeah.
But we have had some fun new tools around the shop that we haven't played with yet. So one of them happens to be a green screen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if I poke it, you can't even see. It wiggles on my end, not on your end. That's awesome. But we are here to talk about all kinds of stuff. And
Hey,
I
Ray.
gotta say, we almost should start by talking about last week because ever since starting the show back up, we missed a week already.
Yeah, so we're actually squeezing another show in. It's almost like an every other week thing, right? Because we got a show in, then we had to go to Sioux Falls, and then we're squeezing a show in this weekend, even though we're heading to Minnesota like early in the morning in the dark tomorrow. And then we got Thanksgiving, so we probably won't be doing a show because nobody will want to watch us on Thanksgiving
You'll be
anyway.
busy.
and then we have St. Paul, which everybody is really anxious for. So yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind. Sioux Falls was awesome. You know, there was a lot of people there. We got to see all of our show friends and some non-show friends. So meet some new people. That was awesome. We had a couple of cool new vendors that showed up, and they'll be around. If you missed them at Sioux Falls, they're planning on being at some of the other shows too.
And hello to everybody checking in
Michelle,
in the comments. Tobin, I was going to say, I see him checking in. Tobin was in the Striker booth this weekend, so let us know how that went, because normally that's where we are for this expo, but we also got the opportunity this weekend to spend our time in the Razor Ice Auger booth. So actually, it was really, really fun. There is a ton of excitement. We honestly had people come to the booth and just say that they had to come and check us out because they saw so many people leaving with orange boxes. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's not often that you get that customers notice the amount of product walking around on the floor. Like, you know, you'll get the show people coming around saying, "Hey, good job," you know, people are liking your stuff, but actually customers coming up and being like, I just needed to see what was in this box because there's like millions of people walking around with
Everyone's
it.
got
like. But if you guys have a chance, take a look because the new synthetic Ultra and the new synthetic light, the 8-inch versions have something called an ice wing, and I'm not going to explain it to you. You're going to have to look it up. But look up the Razor Ice Wing, the Razor Ice Auger Ice Wing.
And if you look and can't find it for whatever reason, then let us know because it is a super cool feature that I don't think anybody else has on their augers right now. And it is definitely going to, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, not even them yet. But it is definitely going to make an impact on how you drill those holes. So coming up to ice season, looking forward to that.
Yeah. So we're going to be at Blaine at the Razor Ice Auger booth. So if you guys are in Minnesota and you want to hit us up, we'll show you what that ice wing is all about.
In person.
Yeah.
Cool. And if you guys have questions or comments or things along the way, drop that in our comment box because we will see that and we would love to chat along with you.
Yeah.
Plus, we have some really great guests here tonight. So let's bring them
Without further ado.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Epic Bait Molds.
Thanks. Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
So first question is always, if you guys can introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, hey guys. So I'm Jason. This is my wife, Amanda.
Hey.
We own and run Epic Bait Molds. And what we do is we design and manufacture aluminum molds that people use to make fishing lures. So everything from crappie fishing, ice fishing, all the seasons. And we also do some, bass fishing stuff, saltwater, pretty much anything. I think we have 175 or 6 different molds now that we do. And we're in Melbourne, Florida, which is about an hour southeast of Orlando. And we kind of moved here to do more saltwater stuff along with the freshwater lineup. So anything you want to add?
No, that's about it.
So for people who maybe came to the show tonight and were expecting, a tackle producer, the cool thing about this is actually, some of the profiles that we might be talking about here tonight are let's say you guys are the people who make the molds for different companies. Like you guys help other companies be what they are. So can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'll show you kind of our molds, like how big they are. So this is one of our actual top selling molds. It's a crappie bait. It's gonna be hard to see because it's so shiny. But we make molds that it's as hobbyists and small companies can use to make baits. And you're using you're heating up your own liquid plastisol until it starts to gel. You're adding your own pigments and flakes, and then you're using like a giant syringe basically to suck that hot, like 350-degree liquid plastic up, and then inject it into the mold. And after about a minute, you're demolding and pulling out whatever baits it might be. Some baits take a little longer, some are a little faster. Like ice baits, you can make a lot more because the molds don't heat up as much.
We have injection style and open pour style, and some of the open pours take longer to basically cool down so that you can demold them. The mold he just showed you could demold in 30 seconds to a minute and have, what is that, 30? I forget, 24 baits in that. So you get 24 of these little crappie slayers.
It's hard to see.
It's literally moving. I'm not even moving my hand.
Like shockingly well.
It does. It's like camoed in there.
Figure this would be a nice background of our Florida life now. But yeah, so those are the injection style, the open pour. Some of them, one of them is actually, the boss is 7.8 inches, and it's
huge.
It's
like 4
humongous,
ounces.
like super thick. So that takes like a long time to cool down. So some of those, take hours. Some people spend hours and hours on one bait. So it can be hobbyists who are like super creative and want to make really creative, awesome baits, or they just want to make some baits for their friends or fishing buddies themselves. And then we have tons of small businesses all over the world that we cater to. And
well, what we're trying to do there is we're trying to take designs out there that we know work, like this little stinger style bait. And we're trying to modify them or make them unique or our own so that, it gives the small tackle companies a selling advantage or just an advantage in general if they're fishing. We're not just trying to make them look good. We're trying to make them act, really well, and the molds inject really well. And also for like these crappie baits, like we have tail molds. So you can see the tail is actually shot in a separate mold. Or you can actually shoot that mold, cut the tails off, put them back in, and then you can shoot a body onto it, which allows you a lot of freedom for creativity, which makes you can make baits that you can't just go get off the shelf at Walmart or somewhere. You got to go to like a specialty place or order them to get these kind of baits.
Right. They're all of the stuff we make is super detailed too, which is a talent of Jason's. He used to work in aerospace machining and manufacturing and designing and programming and producing parts for like Boeing and SpaceX and Blue Origin. And so we kind of combined that with our love for fishing, and he's actually a tackle junkie too.
Oh yeah.
So he has a bajillion baits and has always studied them and studied like what they do in the water and their action and just like everything about them. So combining all that together is kind of how we got here. So
and I think that's a great point that we kind of touch on in a little bit of a different way in other episodes. We are not here to knock any of the big companies or anything like that. But when you go to a big box store and you are buying plastics that are mass produced, it just simply has a different action. It just is different from when you go to your local bait maker, somebody who is doing a hand pour type situation. And part of that is because of the plastic that gets used. But I think it's really cool that you guys are able to be the ones who come up with that mold to kind of make that all happen, because so many people at home, I have this idea, I have that idea, like, let's make this mold. It would be so easy. And I think that people don't always realize, like you're saying, all of the work that goes into producing just a silly little plastic.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's if you've ever watched any of our YouTubes, I show a little bit of like the designing. Like I'll usually do like a sketch. I'll have the idea in my head for like months, and it'll be like I'll wake up one day and I'll be like, today's the day. It has to come out.
He does.
And I'll
Things
sketch
come
it.
to him at night, and he'll wake up at like 3 a.m. and can't go back to sleep.
And I'll go sketch it out, and then I'll take the sketches in the computer, and I'll start, working the model of the bait. And then when I get that dialed in exactly how I want it, then I'll start, making the mold. Like, how are they going to lay out? Where's the air going to travel out to get the bubbles out? And then after that's designed, I have my model of my mold. Then we go into the cam side, which is, the cam. So I'm putting tool paths. So I'm picking each little bitty tool and telling the machine how fast to spin it, how fast to move it, to cut all those little details and make sure nothing breaks and all that stuff. So it's crazy. And then you go to the machine, you prove it out, and if it's good, it's you can start producing it. But usually we test them. If there's denting or bubbles in the baits, we'll redesign the model, adjust the tool paths as needed, and then we'll go back and machine another one, which usually molds are like an hour, sometimes an hour and 15 minutes, somewhere in there. Some of the smaller ones are like 30, 40 minutes to machine, and then we'll test it again. And we've had like 15 iterations of one mold just to get the venting and everything dialed in, because we know that once it's dialed in, it's like good forever. So it's worth taking the time to make sure that first one, is good. And then the machines, as long as you keep checking your tools and keep everything, dialed in, everything should be consistent over time. So
yeah, and that's you bring up a good point. And like if any of you go on Epic Bait Molds website, and I mean you'll see you can type into Google like, plastic bait molds, and you can get a whole bunch of different companies and stuff. And then a lot of the bait making side, there's a lot of talk about like how much molds cost and this and that. And you bring up a good point. Like they're made, every company makes them, but they're made for a lifetime. Like it's a piece of metal that you're shooting plastic into. There shouldn't be a whole lot of wear and tear on it. The difference is that you guys spend a lot of time at the polishing phase. And so when you brought up that mold to the camera before, that makes a huge difference. And like for someone like me, like I picked it up. Emily said something like, hey, we should try doing that. And so I'm one of those people that like takes a hobby and like has to go like 110% right off the gate. Like I'm like one of those shock dogs. Like I jump right off the shock after the fight.
We are
and so like we dove head first into it, and there is like a pretty steep learning curve that you don't really hit until like you've ran through some plastics. And like you said, like you can make a lot of ice baits, which is cool. But if you do a lot of ice baits and they all turn out kind of crappy, like it's kind of disheartening, and you don't know why. But sometimes it just has to do with how that mold is made. Right. And you don't understand that till later on in the game. And so like the price on your molds, I think, is almost like it's almost too little in my opinion, just because it feels like such a deal when you're shooting it, and after you shot some molds that don't work so well, or maybe old ones and stuff, and then you get to shoot something that's like a Cadillac of one, it's like, oh, that's all I want to shoot. And the detail that you guys get to put in some of the small baits, as panfish anglers, there's a lot of baits out there that are not very detail oriented because they're so small. Some of our stuff is like a half-inch big, and it's hard to put detail in something like that. And you guys have figured that out, and it's pretty awesome.
Well, I think another thing too is a lot of companies. I mean, it's hard to do, and it's a lot of companies I feel like don't. The molds are more like prismatic. They're like more like boxes and cylinders and balls and stuff that like ours are very. Like I'm like lofting surfaces to create. Like I'll like if you cut the bait at the tail, in the middle, and at the head, I would draw like 3 different body profiles, and then I would create these lines that will loft to the body across them. It's kind of crazy. And then I don't know. I kind of nerd out about how many, like, what can I put on there? Like this little 1.7 prey bait has like scaling, like it has a lateral like break into scaling. It has little side fins.
Let's see if you can see that color.
I don't know if you can be able to see it. You can kind of see
Actually,
it.
like a little
That's
bit.
awesome.
Yeah, depending on how big your screen
Roll
is.
it up a little.
On your cell phone, it might be kind of small, but on my computer screen,
You see
Yeah,
a
that's-
side
hey,
fin.
that's even a nice color, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That was Fish Daddy shot those.
Yeah, Fish
Oh,
Daddy
cool.
401, Arthur Slater. You guys probably know him. He's a
Yeah.
awesome dude, one of our good friends, and he makes baits, and I think he only uses Epic molds now.
know-
We converted him.
You know what's funny is we actually like buy baits from people from our molds
We
because
do.
like I'm not like we can make really good baits, but I'm like see them and I'm like, oh, I just want to buy these guys baits.
I mean, he's like a tackle junkie. If he could buy every single, like, we may own everything in Bass Pro Shops. I don't even know by now.
No.
I mean, they're all in like boxes still from the move, and I'm like, we have this big pegboard that we're gonna put them all up on. I'm like, maybe we should start putting like our baits on the wall.
Yeah.
Because I think we have as many as Bass Pro now. But, no,
So then, what is it that you guys are fishing for?
What are we fishing for here?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I'll fish for anything.
Yeah.
I love, this is perfect for you guys because I love small baits. So like, that's why I make a lot of like 2-inch size baits.
The
'cause
smaller
that's-
the fish, the better
Yeah.
for Jason. Like he likes catching big fish too, but like he'd much rather catch a fish like this small and it be a species he's never seen before,
Right.
or crappie. Like he loves crappie. And
Well, like my favorite rods I use in freshwater, I actually use in saltwater too, are the ACC crappie sticks. Like they're 7.6 and I like their 6.6 a lot. It's more like a little ninja rod that I can get in there and dock shoot and stuff.
mm-hmm.
And I'll shoot a lot of these baits around. I'll bass fish with them. I'll do everything with them. But now here in Florida, we've been doing a little more beach fishing. We have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so we'll take them to the beach and we'll cast out with like strips. It's called fish bites. It's like a little strip of like, I don't know, fish paste.
Yeah.
And
I don't
we'll put
know.
them
It's like kind of looks like bubble yum.
bubble. It does. It's
A
like a
little
strip
bit.
of gum.
Okay.
And put it on there and he casts it out and it stays in the hook. And then my 3-year-old loves like reeling in whiting and stuff like that. But
We use stuff other than our own baits.
oh yeah,
A lot too. We use a lot of our own baits
Bec-
too, but
because like she's always like, why don't you use our baits? And I'm like, well, I want to use everything else because I want to keep learning. Like I already know how our baits work, but I want to throw that thing. I never like anytime I go to a tackle store and I'm like, I've never seen this bait. I'm like, dude, I gotta get
I'm
that.
telling you, we have. I can't believe we don't have all of them by now.
Oh, I know. And like, or like sometimes you go to like flea markets and there's like these vintage
Oh, that's super cool.
tackle
To see those.
things there, and you find these baits from like the 80s that are discontinued, and you're like, this is crazy. Some of them are so cool.
And we get a lot of people that reach out to us that we used to do custom molds, but very quickly got too busy for that, it's hard for us to not be able to do that, but takes a really long time to do just one.
It could be like for like a whole week of just maybe even 2 of one design, because you don't know if it's not always like this is what I want and it's just like boom, you're done. It's like it may not shoot at all, it may not swim at all when you're fully done. You got to go back to the beginning and figure out why and then solve it. So anyways, sorry I cut you off.
No, so it's like people reach out to us all the time about it, and unfortunately I have to tell them we can't do it, but we do take in consideration, like sometimes people want to do custom, but they're willing like for it to be available, or as part of their idea to be available for everyone. And then we'll take some ideas on board and kind of create something that is similar. But people will send us like old baits that, they're like in 1920, my grandpa had this,
yeah.
and and it's pretty neat to see stuff like that.
Mhm.
Well, I imagine like when somebody has an idea, like half the time you're like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm glad that we saw this. What a great idea. And then half the time you're like, this is the stupidest idea. Like,
We never say that. But.
No,
Well,
Jason-
and we're familiar with that custom process too, because we did something as simple. We worked with somebody and did something as simple as a twister, and it was already kind of fleshed out. We made a couple tweaks here and there off of an existing profile, but even that was time consuming. And I like we talked about a little bit earlier, like we're tackle crafters, so we had a little bit of an edge versus somebody just peeling something out of their tackle box and throwing it on a table saying, here, can we make something like this? We measured it and like we did like thicknesses and tolerances for different parts and like sent it in. But even then, I think it took us like 2 months to just work it out with back and forth, through emails and day jobs with them and us. And it turned out really well. you know, and it is available through other bait makers, but it's like, it's crazy how in that process it is. And then when you go to the store, you look at the baits and you're like, you know, you wouldn't think that much goes into it.
Yeah, and when people send us stuff, it's not like even so much like, oh, this is so stupid. It's more like people don't, and including me, can't see like what he sees in his head. And he can literally, like, before he made this, he could see it in his head in the computer as a design and see it being cut into a mold and what it would look like as a plastic. Like I can't even begin to see that. And so people send us ideas and they think they're great and they look cool on paper. Like most of them look neat, but he's like, that's literally not machinable, or that's not going to swim well, or, you know, and so we'll explain that to people. And that was actually partially really difficult when we did custom molds, because people have this like dream of a bait and it's this best idea ever. And, you know, you kind of have to break their heart a little, because you're like, well, we could do this, we can't do this. And it's part of what we love working with Nate Marling about is he like understands that, you know, Marling Baits, for everyone that's watching, I know you guys love him, but
some bigger
like
stuff
he understands now very quickly. He sees in Jason's, you know, how he sees, like their creative abilities are very similar. So he understands limitations and the things he can do. And sometimes Jason still tells him, oh, like that might not work, that little tail or whatever. But it's really neat because now it's like super fluid, you know, doing some of the collaborations that we do with him. So.
Well, he understands it may not come back. The first draft may not come back exactly like his sketches or his model or, you know, carving, but it's going to be because it's the closest you could physically get to that, you know, and still make it work as a mold. So,
yeah. So for those of you watching, if you're not familiar with Marling Baits, that's really a YouTube channel you should check out. And like, it's almost worth starting at Nate's newer stuff and working backwards. And once you get like halfway through that stuff, you will understand why. Because Nate, like, he makes you feel like you kind of know him, but if you start out, it's like even his style changes. And
he used to do like totally silent.
It was really cool, and it's a very cool channel to watch. But you'll understand what Jason and Amanda are talking about when you see some of the things that he carves, and then you're like, oh man, he sends that to Jason to make a mold out of. It's like, how did he even make that out of wood with that utility knife?
I know. We want to do a video of, like, we wish we lived near them so much. We almost moved to Iowa, actually, but we're like, well, we second thought. We thought twice about the cold, but headed south instead. But who knows? One day, I don't know. But yeah, we think it'd be really cool to do like from concept to carving to computer sketch to, you know, making the mold to testing it and everything. Like, it'd be really cool to show everyone that whole process, because like Chelsea, Nate's wife, and I, and Jason and Nate are the only people really that have seen, you know, what goes into all that. So it's like pretty crazy when they're together. They're just like, I can't even explain it. They're on like another level of like the world of creativity. They just like, they have 500 million ideas and they're ready to implement all of them immediately. Chelsea and I are like, well, logistically speaking, we could probably only do 500,000 of these.
How are you gonna?
But no, it's pretty cool. I mean, that's like literally why we're here, is because of the creative, you know, genius. So it's pretty awesome.
So I guess funny side story, in one of Nate's videos not long ago, didn't he share that he had like all these viewers and then he broke it down, and then didn't he say that women were like 4% or maybe even like 0.4%? Are you and I the 0.4% right now?
Chelsea. Shout out to Chelsea, his wife. She watches him too, I'm sure.
When we were moving, there was like, honestly, we didn't have internet for like 2 months. Like I had no idea that we were going to be that rural, that it was going to take that long. And now it's great. But you know what I miss so much was honestly Marling Baits.
Everyone really comes to love his stuff. And he was doing Sunday videos. You probably know, for a period of time he wanted to do them every week. And
it was like 40 in a row.
Yeah, and recently he
crazy.
stopped that, and I
Yeah.
saw like some comments randomly online, like, "Is Marling Baits okay?"
Like, he's good at it.
Everyone's like freaking out. I'm like, Nate, your people miss you.
I'm one of them.
No, Nate's awesome. He's like the same person that you see on camera in person,
Oh, yeah.
which is really cool because I think sometimes you wonder that, at least I do, you know, because you like movie stars or even YouTube personalities that you could tell they're like kind of overdoing it or like, you know, going to another level with their personality. And Nate, like, what you see is what you get. It's pretty neat.
We're just like hanging out, and all of a sudden he's like talking to the camera, and I'm like, "Were you just recording all that?" He's like, "Yeah." Oh, I like move out. Like, am I supposed to be in the shot? I don't know.
Yeah, he's like so good at making his videos now. You can't even tell he's doing it. It's just like, okay, there's the video. Okay.
That's awesome.
Well, and the cool thing about, like, you know, you guys have some content too, which is really awesome. Like I stay up to date with all of your guys' stuff. I stay up to date with Nate's. There's a couple plastics ones that we watch. You know, there's even a guy, I believe, that's in Florida. He's like an engineer by trade, and then he does crazy things with just like household items, making baits. The engineered angler, I like watching him.
Oh.
He brings a lot of. For me, Emily gets bored with it because the dude does a lot of math. It's a lot of
Mhm.
physics.
He will
and
like
he
walk
writes
you
it
through
like the physics
buoyancy.
formulas, and he
Oh.
writes it all on the board, and like
Crazy.
and the production value is a little, but it for me it's like it's really
education value.
engaging, and all of you guys, like, it's very inspiring to me. Like that's how I get inspired to go try things. You know, for me, and this is so stupid. So I went on this huge. So as ice fishermen, we have something. You know, we have something called a spring bobber, and that's actually attached to your rod. So it's not a free floating bobber. It's just a piece of metal that hangs off the end of your rod for really light bites. And I went through maybe a year and a half phase where I did all this research on spring bobbers and nickel titanium and the different levels of it. And I went and bought a bunch of that wire from a place.
Had to straighten it all out.
I figured out how to. It comes in a coil, but you have to get it to the right temperature. If you overheat it, it loses its reflex properties, because that
Right.
Nai-Tai, you can bend it in a circle and it goes back as long as it's heat treated properly. And so I found the correct amount of weight, and I hung it. I suspended it from my ceiling in the basement, and I hit it with a lighter, and I had a specific amount of time. It was too crazy. So I ended up making a whole bunch of these spring bobbers. Where the story is going is that I really enjoy that you guys can do and have the time to do a lot of that for me, because if I didn't have you guys as an outlet to watch and like see that stuff come about, I would go crazy at work. I wouldn't get anything done because that's all I do is like look stuff up. I like to tinker with stuff. And the sad part about it is just like I said before, like I'm a dog with ideas. When I figure it out, then I'm done with it. But now I have all this stuff to do it with. Now, well, I figured it out. I can do it now. But it's just so cool that we have that outlet, and there's this community. So it's not only like you guys as mold makers and that side of the plastic world, or like people that make spinners. All of us that are in tackle craft really have a cool community. So anybody that's watching, like just look these people up on Facebook and just start to like interact, because I think the majority of the community is really friendly and like willing to help and really like to be teachers of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of really awesome people in the community, mostly men, yes, but there are some women. And yeah, we actually have a Facebook group called Epic Bait Makers. So anyone that is interested at all, like anyone's welcome to join. You don't even have to use our molds or anything. That's pretty cool. And then our Instagram page, we sometimes will all the time, we share bait makers that are making baits with our stuff. And so like if people just want to buy some baits from our molds, we're constantly sharing those people that make them so that people can contact them, because everyone doesn't want to make baits necessarily. There is an investment and to get going, and time investment, and
the learning curve.
But there's plenty of people that love that, but there's plenty of people that, they just want baits from bait makers. And that's part of what we love so much, is being able to connect people, and helping our customers grow their businesses, which is super important to us, because we love, small businesses, and American made products is part of, a huge pride that we take in what we do. The
stories that we get of it is like a creative outlet. It changes, like, people are depressed, and they somehow, this is their one thing that it changes their world. It's crazy. It sounds crazy, but it's and families that can afford, their things they couldn't afford before. Maybe they have a side hustle of making baits. You go make baits for 1 or 2 hours a night, you can make a few $100 of baits every night, and that adds up over the month.
Yeah, we've had a couple of customers that are now like building bigger shops because of it, and it's pretty neat. It's really cool, the reach, and we sell to, like, I don't know, probably 30-40 different countries, so all over the world. Like, we have a huge group of people in Sweden led by Man Cave Baits, Frederick, and he will order like a big set of molds. Like, everyone puts their order in with him so that they can save on the shipping, and we'll send like a big pack, and then they'll get them. They actually get them super fast. That's one thing we take pride in, is we can only control so much of the actual action once it leaves our shop, but whenever I ship internationally, we ship the fastest option. So they'll sometimes have it within like 2 days. Like, they'll order it on a Friday, it's there Monday morning, or they'll order on Monday, it'll be there Wednesday, which is like crazy to me.
Yeah.
Something that we made in our shop that I like hand wrapped, that I put into a box, and then 2 days later it's in Sweden, and they're like using it and, fishing with it.
You just want to like jump in the box and go with it.
I know, just like,
here I am.
That would be so cool. Yeah. And the video stuff that you mentioned, we really want to do more of that. We're just limited on obviously how much time we have in our day, but we moved here. When we moved here, we had I think he was 6 months when we moved here, 6-month-old. We have a 3-year-old, and we moved the whole business. So
it's crazy.
We're finally now, I feel like through the whole thing, we were keeping up with orders, and, the baby, the kids, we like really love. It's really important to us to have, a good family life and time with our kids. So we're finally at the point now where we're going to start cranking out more videos, more products, more mold ideas. He has like 5 billion mold ideas in his head that he wants to get out, that we just haven't had time yet. Him and Nate have all these ideas. So
I went through like my software, like all the stuff, like I was organizing like all the files, and I found like 10 molds that were half done that I just forgot about. I was like, what the heck? This is like 100 hours of work just sitting in here.
Yeah. And then like videos, we want to do videos so bad more. We love doing that. We want to like teach our customers like how to use the molds, and how to troubleshoot if you're getting denting or this is happening.
And just like what each mold is. Because like, like when I want to buy something, whether it's a car, a piece of workout gear, a fishing pole, a reel, I want to go see someone talk about it and holding it and using it and saying, this is what I use it for. This is like blah, blah, blah. Because then you're like, oh, that's exactly what I want. So like for something I want to do for everyone, so that they just know, is like, this is the mold, this is how it shoots, this is the baits, this is how the baits move underwater, which is a lot to gather. But if we can do that for every single design, then when you go to the site, you can really get exactly what you want. And that's what we want. We want people to get exactly what they want. I want you to know what you're getting, not like, here's a discount mold or a cheap mold and you get it quick and, and then
oh no, I don't let anything go out the door that has even the smallest imperfection.
Oh man, dude. Talk about it. I mean, she's like our QA. Like, she's like, there's a scratch. I'm like, I can barely see it. She's like,
it's a scratch.
Throws it in the scrap bin. I'm like, oh my soul.
Well, it's the quality. We have to keep the quality. Epic bait molds. That's what it is. It has to be epic.
Finally,
scratch?
somebody
Is it
using the word epic correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
I send them back to him to
She does.
either fix it or toss it.
Yeah, like even like because sometimes like if we're not the mold side, we can't really recut that once it's cut. But if this is like scratched, I can actually like put it in and cut like an arm hair thickness of metal off and then re-engrave it,
Yeah.
and it looks like brand new. But it's they still have to make a custom program and set it all up and do that. So it's not usually worth it.
Sometimes not worth saving. And where I always feel bad because I'm like, man, I wish I could send these out, but I don't want anyone to even like get a free not epic mold. It has to be epic,
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So when you're like creating baits, I mean, like, does match the hatch mean something to you, or you're just like going for creative and whatever you come up with?
As far as the actual like shapes and design or the coloring, so that's the intent of it. Sometimes it's there's the Zoom brush hog. It's like I don't know what that mimics. A bunch of things. It's like a worm, a craw, a swim bait if you swim it. So like that, for instance, we're kind of mimicking the action of that bait with our style of hog. But on lots of other stuff, we are trying to mimic bait fish or worms or things like that.
He's as obsessed with the action of the bait as he is with the design of it. So like he does not stop until the action is what he thinks it should be for that, whatever it is.
Right. And then what's cool too is like you guys kind of touched on it earlier. It's like so let's take this little bait for instance. So if I make this out of a harder dirt, like a harder, firmer plastisol, that tail is gonna have it's gonna be straighter and have more like a fast vibration. If I make it out of a soft plastisol, it's gonna have more of a whip. So depending how you're fishing it, you may want to be just like a little bit of like very subtle twitching, or you may actually want it to be a lot of whip. Or if you're in cold water, you probably want softer because it's going to be firmer in that cold water. So then you still have more action. But things like the disc shaker, I like that. We don't have one here, do we?
Mm-mm.
It has like these 6 little legs with discs, and the intention of the disc is that if you're jigging it vertically, they can catch water and kind of drift and twist and create secondary action. So like your main action is like how you're fishing it, like you're jigging it or moving it along. The secondary action is like what is the bait's reaction when you're not doing anything. So it has like vibrations. That bait has a long tail of the disc. That tail can whip. Mm-hmm. This is our battle grub. It's flat, or it looks like a grub from this shape. If you turn it, the tail is super duper thin on the end. It's got a grub body. So the intent of that is you see how the tail is doing that, but it's like a grub. So you can get good rigging through there.
It also has like projections.
It has little spikes to add
on the sides.
They're hard to see.
That's cool.
Yeah.
To add additional texture and to kind of, I don't know, I try to make things look like worms, grubs, fish, crayfish, whatever's out there. That's the goal in the end. And we hope to be able to like do lead molds too eventually and make it so that they're matched. Like the bodies, the soft baits are matched to the lead head, so you get kind of a seamless transition. Coming now.
Okay, so not to go all the way back to like the beginning of what you said there, but you kind of blew my mind. And I don't know if anybody else picked this up. One of the things that you said is you were talking about that tail and like moving at the, soft plastic versus harder plastic. And that's great. Yeah. But then you said the softer plastic, especially if you put that into cold water, that it might be different. And I'm sitting here thinking like, I have some baits that I use because ice fishing, a lot of times you downsize that really small profile, and that is great. But some of these profiles, I'll use it in open water and you like crush fish. And then you go and you use it on ice and nothing happens. And you're like, okay, I understand the match the hatch. Maybe it's not the cycle of the bug. Maybe this or that. But I've always wondered, like the color's right. This is right. Maybe you're totally onto something there with maybe it changes the plastic just that little bit. Maybe the action is what's changing. So I don't know if anybody else out there can relate to that, but I've totally seen that happen. And I appreciate that you said that.
Well, and we really go and we like to preach that like the home bait makers make a far superior panfish plastic than your big box stores. And it's not because big box stores make poor plastics. It's just that they are physically unable to produce the different hardnesses of plastic that home bait makers can achieve. And that, so
Right.
not only are you supporting a small business, but you're really using those baits, especially small ones, with the intended with or how they're supposed to be fished, because you can, like you said, you can change it up so much, or ask your bait maker to change, can you make this a little bit harder, or can you make it softer,
Mhm.
and then but then you have to add a third dimension to your tackle box. So you have you have one side is this color and this side is this color, but then you flip it this way and it's like soft, medium, hard.
Mhm. Yeah, Michael
We're gonna
from
need just a boat to pull our plastic.
Yeah. Oh, seriously, like have a little rope with a barge behind
Yeah.
you.
Crappie Hijinks is on here. Michael, he's awesome. You guys had him on
Yeah.
a little while ago, and he's an awesome bait maker. If anyone watching wants to try he has our crappie slayer. He sells some of our other baits from other molds, and I think he has some of his own custom stuff too. That's awesome. But he is an awesome dude. So if anyone's looking to get just baits, check him out. Crappie
Yeah,
Hijinks.
he does make some really cool stuff, and it's really cool because Mike and I talk once in a while, and it's cool to bounce ideas off each other. I was showing him because I had just bought your crappie slayer mold, and I was showing him. I took the pin part out of a pop rivet, and that diameter fits in your mold, and it doesn't fall up or down, so it stays centered, and I can shoot core shots out of your mold. And Mike was
That's
like,
awesome.
"Oh man, how did you do that?" And I was like, no, but it's really cool because you guys get to be so creative on the front end, but then you like can see how creative your customers can be on the back end.
Mhm.
Oh, it's
And
amazing.
it's just a really cool world of, I don't consider myself an artist. I'm not super great with, matching colors. I just know what looks cool to me. Emily's
Yeah.
like the artist, but a lot of people out there, like you said early in the show, like they'll spend hours on just like one bait, and it looks like it's so crazy how cool it looks with the different layers and stuff. And I don't even know if I would want to fish with something like that. I want
I
to
know.
pump a bunch out and fish with a bunch of them,
Yeah.
Yeah, like Fish Daddy's wife, Sandy, she makes some crazy stuff. She actually uses makeup, and she'll hand paint it. Like he'll clear pour the actual mold,
Skin pour
it, it's called, and then she'll like hand design all her stuff with her
Crazy.
makeup, and then he'll pour in like the layers, and then it comes out like she pulled up a picture of a snake. They came and visited us in Alabama once, and she pulled out a picture of a snake, and she did like the exact pattern on one of our molds, and it turned out just amazing. And there's some other people like Stillwater Bait Co. He makes some incredibly cool designs. I'm trying to think of some other people, like so many cool stuff, like things that have to take these people like hours to do just one.
Well, Nick Rundle. He goes, like he'll sit there for a whole night.
And he has a YouTube channel, The Bait Cave. I don't know if you guys have seen it. He's awesome. He's crazy awesome. And his stuff's just this. It's just cool because I think the pride that these people take to make the baits, and then like he could have this whole huge successful business, I think, selling them, and he did sell them. I think he sometimes does still. He has a local tackle shop. I think now he's providing stuff, but like he wants to just give it all away because he just loves it so much, and that's kind of how we are. Like it's a business. We have to make money to put money back in the business and keep growing and being able to make these molds for everyone. But like we just love it so much. Like that's the community that we're in is so cool. Like everyone is so giving and like giving of their knowledge and their time. And like Fish Daddy is constantly helping people get into it and like learning from the beginning. And no matter how frustrated they get, like Nick does the same thing. Like they'll just help people troubleshoot, and it's just cool. It's really neat.
That is super cool.
Mhm.
Man, that whole fishing community though, the whole like take kids out, take your friends out. I mean, I think there's a whole push for everyone supporting each other right now. And so that is awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of leads me to the other question that I had for you is, with such a push to get people involved into the sport of fishing and taking kids out, there's so many youth these days that want to grow up and have a job in fishing. And I think so often that lends itself to like biology or chemistry so you can work in the DNR or water quality or whatever that is. But this is a perfect example that there's a whole nother world of things out there that people can be doing. So can you give people a hint at how you would begin to gain the knowledge of, I know computer skills go into this, the machining skills go into this. Like, where do you begin?
Man, that's a good question.
Fish Daddy just joined. He said late to the party. We just talked about you and Sandy. Yeah.
It's one thing. It's I think you gotta take like something you enjoy plus a skill set you have and kind of combine the two. So like I was in machining, aerospace machining, so I knew I always was good with computers. I was good at graphic design, video editing, all that stuff. And so taking that, I actually excelled in machining because I could already run computers very well. And I have a brain that thinks in 3D in my head. So I could do all that really well. And then I actually quit machining altogether. And 4 years later is when we started this. So we resurrected that skill set and then put it with our love for fishing. And she has the management, organization, and communication skills I lack to bring the back end of the business. Because people don't realize it's not just like, oh, we're just making molds and throw them in boxes and shipping them. It's like there's a whole side of running and properly structuring a business and, the financing machines and equipment and like soul. I mean, she's emailing and texting and calling all these people all the time just to keep everything organized and running straight. So there's all that. But as far as like careers go, there's a million different ways you can be involved in fishing. I mean, you could be like
video editing.
You could do like article writing, YouTubing. I know we've hung out with I can't remember the guy, the catfish. Can't remember his name.
Oh,
Spencer.
God. Spencer, River Certified.
Yeah, he started. He's doing videos catfishing in Iowa.
Thanks, Mike.
And then he, is kind of transitioning into guiding and other things now. And he writes articles for Whisker Seeker. And so it's just kind of finding your skill set where you can be involved. And it's bigger than you think.
And like following your passion, and maybe the thing that you start with isn't the thing that you're going to do, right? Like, but if you follow a passion and you love the thing you're doing, and like people think of like failures, and if you do something and it doesn't work out, it's like, oh, it's a failure. Right. It's actually just like one step closer to what you're meant to do, right? Or what you want to eventually do, what you end up falling into. Like when we started this business, we actually, the whole reason we started it was because we had a business. We were doing online products for people, courses, marketing, media. And we just didn't love it. It just wasn't that fulfilling. We would do these huge projects and then we'd be like, what did we even do? Like, we don't even remember what we even made. And Jason just wants to he needed to get back to making things, like physically making things. That's just like part of his core of his soul. So BioBait, which is an awesome company out of Denver, Colorado, we actually had them on a podcast we used to do called Fish Mastery. And we were trying to teach people how to fish, and it was really cool out in San Diego, but it kind of led us to meet them. They asked he's like, do you have experience in machining? Maybe you can make these molds. Like there's a huge need for this in the industry. And there's a huge need for the large mold manufacturers, like the huge molds that, Straight King and Guggen Squad and all those companies. We've actually said no to like almost all of those big companies in the industry to making their molds because first of all, we're only so big and we've tried to grow and there's limitations to that.
Quality limitations.
Yeah. And we're trying to figure out a way to do more and be able to reach more people with, the skills. anyway, so we just we ended up like falling into supporting the smaller bait makers instead. Like Jason saw this as like a crossroads we had to kind of pick. Are we going to like make these huge molds for these big companies, or are we going to make molds for smaller bait makers? And we chose the smaller bait maker route, and we are like so glad we did. Like we love supporting, you know, like I said earlier, small businesses, but it happened like totally different than what we thought, is my point. You know, we followed the passion, we followed our skill set. We got the machine, we bought it. We actually went 10,000 miles or something. 14,000 miles with
drove around the country.
At our first baby, who was 6 months old at the time, to find an affordable place to start the business. That's literally why we moved to Alabama. And we found a house with a shop on the property. It was actually just a pole barn that was full of crap. It was full of trash from the previous owner. And we ended up spending like 2 months cleaning it out, getting it ready. He wired 100 amps of power from the house to the shop.
We ran the air compressor and the lights off with an extension cord from the house.
It was crazy.
I ran one set of wires for the machine, and that was it.
I mean, this was 3 years ago. Like, this isn't even that long ago. And
Yeah.
you know, we just with a lot of hard work and knowing that we were going to make it happen, like 100% of our souls knew that. We just,
Well, it was like people were like, "What if it does? What if it's not successful?" And my answer was, "It's not going to fail."
His answer was, "It's not going to fail." I always play worst case scenarios. You know, what actually is the worst case scenario, and can I live with that? And for Epic Bait Molds, it was okay. We go bankrupt, right? Like, we go bankrupt. We have, thankfully, a hugely supportive family on both sides. So like, we choose one of our families to live with and maybe rotate and figure our stuff out. We both have previous careers. You know, like I used to be a nurse. I did cancer research. And he has his whole career in machining and programming. So, you know, we had like that to fall back on. But I think neither of us, going into something like this, having the confidence and just knowing like we had a lot to bring to the table, and we worked hard.
Yeah, we're willing to put in the hours and time. That's the thing, is it's you know, people see like, you know, when businesses are going and they're successful, they go, "Oh, it must be nice." It wasn't nice. It was freaking hard.
A lot of beans and rice.
It was. We were eating beans
not
and rice.
sleeping.
And I was working probably 18 hours a day for over the first year at least. Because, you know, and it's funny because we do more now than we did then. It's just the fact that you're learning, you're building your systems, you're building your efficiency, you're building it all. And one thing that, you know, when people try to do something, like when we did our podcast and tried to build like an online course for fishing in San Diego area, I don't look back and think like we failed. I look at it and say like we tried something, we learned, we built confidence, we built skills that we can apply forward. So now we know how, if we ever did a podcast again, how we would actually set that up. We knew how to build websites because we did in the past. So
and that's exactly kind of what I was saying, was like, we started out following a passion and we took our skill sets into that. We're like, hey, what are we good at? What can we do here? What we want to be in the fishing industry. We want to do every day, live what we love. And like you can actually create the life you want. I think that's a huge lesson that I'd love for people to know, is like, people think like, oh, how do they live this crazy, awesome life? Like, it's so crazy. And it's like, because we made it happen, you know, and if you have a vision, and it doesn't even have to be like a clear as day vision, you know, it's just following a passion and then seeing what comes of it, and keep making decisions of like I said, like we've had to say no to so many things along the way that could have been awesome opportunities in their own respect. And in order to be where we are, we had to say no to so many things.
We didn't go visit either of our families in Virginia or Wisconsin for over 2 years because we couldn't leave the shop. I mean, it's us. So it's like, his stuff's got to get out.
It's still difficult to travel, to leave, you know, because then like since day one, we have our orders have gone out all through the pandemic even, which was crazy because, you know, everyone was super busy at the time, and every single order went out the door within 5 business days or less, and usually within like 1 to 2. Mm-hmm. And that for us was like absolutely no question that's happening. So our whole life had to be planned around that commitment that we made to our customers and the quality commitment that we made to our customers. And so like there's a point in business where you're growing, and we're totally off topic now, but there's a point in business where you're growing and you have to decide, like, do we scale this and we lose some of the quality, but we can put way more out there and the business can grow and et cetera, or do we say, wait a minute, we need to take a step back here and keep the quality high and make sure that the customers we have now are taken care of and grow at a slower pace, but keep making things more efficient, keep, doing as much as we possibly can to like keep what we have going. And so that's kind of where we've been this past like 6 months. We've been basically like every single process we have in the shop, we have done and redone and redone and redone until we've gotten to the most efficient we can possibly be. And I can tell you right now, none of them are going to stay that way. They're going to keep changing and getting more efficient. So, I just think like the lesson is just like, if you want to do something in your passion, it doesn't mean, like Nate is a good example too. Like he's doing something that people are like, oh, must be nice. He's just making fishing videos for a living, but they sacrificed for a long time their life, and they, and Chelsea takes care of the kids while Nate, and she loves it so much. She chooses to do that, but so that Nate can have time to focus on what he does. Like it takes him a long time to shoot enough content to make one video.
People don't realize like he'll fish for like it'll be like 5 to 10 minutes of fishing at the end of a video. It was like 5 days of him.
Yeah, and he's done that with him like multiple times now. Like, so it's, I think, like piecing together passion and working hard. Like I hope that like anyone that's up and coming and young, and like our kids will certainly be learning this and already do, like working hard, in our opinion, is the only way to success, unless you're literally handed money, which is nice too, right? Like you have a successful family, but
then you don't really, if you have to earn it, you respect it more, I feel like, than if you're given it. It's like you give someone a car, they beat the crap out of it, but when you work hard to buy your first crappy car, you respect it. Because you're like, I bought this car, worked so many hours at McDonald's or wherever you work.
Oh yeah, I did. I bought my first car the minute I could, and I was so dang proud of it. It didn't have power steering and it didn't have power windows.
Yeah, but you loved it.
It was a 5-speed.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
I love that thing so much. But yeah, I don't know, working hard and following your passion, I guess. And like we said, there's so many things you can do in the industry. Like video is huge. If anyone is interested in fishing in the industry, like video would be a thing you could do right now. Get super good at it, shoot videos, and then you could get on so many businesses' radars. You could work for literally probably any company out there, that is in fishing.
And everything's going, if you guys haven't noticed, everything's going towards video. Everything's going towards, video content, how to use products, reviews. YouTube is growing bigger and bigger and bigger. More and more companies are trying to monetize YouTubers' videos and things like that. So it's like, you can't go wrong with that skill set in the future.
Yeah.
And all that is like that whole I don't know, I don't want to call it a monologue because there's both of you there, but that whole set of this conversation was really awesome. Like it's really refreshing to hear, especially small business owners talk so passionately about their situation, and even through the trials, like it was still so rewarding. Like it, if you don't focus on the part of, working for 15 hours and sleeping for 3 and then working for 15 more, if you don't first focus on that part, you focus on, that light that keeps getting a little bit bigger every day, and you can make yourself happy yourself. Yeah. It's really cool to hear that these days, because all we hear is like, oh, everything's going to crap and blah blah, but it's really cool that it's not like. No. Especially in the fishing industry, we have so much small community grassroots stuff like this that just makes you feel good.
Yeah. There's so much opportunity in this world. There's more opportunity than ever. Like I the other day, I do all of our accounting on like Mondays. I log into all of our bank accounts and I do all this stuff, and I I do it all within like 10 minutes. And because it's just like second nature now. You know, I pull up like 15 different tabs on my computer and I'm adding everything up. And I was like thinking, remember the days of AOL? Like even when we were kids and like you're like, and then like 5 minutes later it failed and you're like, I'm never gonna get on. And now it's like if your computer doesn't load in 0.04 seconds, you're frustrated.
Yeah.
And I can like do all of that accounting in literally 10 minutes. And like people back in the day in business, if you think about it, would have taken them like 2 days to do what I do in 10 minutes. Because they have to go to each of their banks and they have to bring the hand envelope and give it and count it and blah, blah, blah. You know, so it's to me like maybe the economy's in a weird place. Obviously that's true. But there's still, to me, is like there's so crazy amount of potential.
If you want to work hard and put in the effort, you can learn a lot. I'm not going to say anything, but you can learn a lot of stuff. I mean, there's so many courses online. There's so much digital content. I mean, when we got into this, I went and I was on YouTube 6 hours a day for probably 6 months prior to starting the company, just watching every video on Fusion 360, whether it pertained to what I did or not. I also watched videos on 3D modeling and other software, trying to see how they would build these things, because then I could take what I saw them do and try to replicate it in our software. Same with machines. Like Haas's YouTube channel has like hundreds of videos on how to maintain and run Haas CNC machines. And yeah, I did that stuff back in the day, but you can learn it all from that. Like I forgot a lot of it. It all kind of brought it back. And I don't know, just like if you're willing to put in the work, the grind, and the time.
And spend your time like learning things that you are interested in. And I fall into the trap too of like mindless scrolling. I try really hard not to, but it's hard not to. And I think if you can, like, if you're interested in something and you don't have a purpose or passion or something yet, and you're like, what is it? You know, the mindless scrolling is the wrong place to be. It's finding the things that you're like, make a list. What are the things I love? And then learn about those things. And then you're going to be like, all of a sudden one day something's going to click and you're going to be like, that's a thing. Like when Jason learned that machining was a thing, it was because some random guy came into a skate shop he worked in and said, you have an unusual attention to detail. You'd be great at machining. And he's like, machining? And he like went and like looked into it and he's like, what?
Yeah, the guy, he's like, come.
He was like 20, right? Or 18?
I was like 22,
22?
I think. And he's like, yeah. He's like, come check out our shop. I own a machine shop. And I was like, okay. And I came in, I was like, oh my gosh, you just cut metal? Like you just like cut right through it like that? He's like, yeah. I was like, that's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
And they were
like,
making,
here we are.
Yeah, they were making like high-end, like these $300,000 laser microscopes where you could like look like at the, you know, gnat's heart beating and stuff like that. And I ended up getting a job there just running a saw 3 hours before I went to the skate shop. And so for 3 months, I ran a saw every morning and I worked hard. I would cut everything. I would give me anything and everything I could cut, stage and get ready for the operators. And they saw that hard work. So they said, you know, would you want to try running machines? I'm like, heck yeah, I want to run machines. This is like the coolest thing ever. So then they brought me in and I didn't just go to work. And when I was done, you know, I was done. I would go home every night. I'll pull up my laptop. I would research all the G&M codes. I would start writing my own stuff. I would take notes when the machines are running. I was reading the code, trying to write down things. I'd research what it meant later. It was, you know, it's not just what you do at work or wherever you are. It's what you do with all of your time, because you have, you know, like she said, if you scroll for 3 hours a day, think if you took 3 hours a day every day and was learning. Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's like a quote, I don't know the exact quote, but it's like, if you're not learning, you're dying. And I think like a lot of people get stuck in this, like, and it's typically the 9 to 5, right? Now it's like totally different world because so many people work from home and all different hours and stuff. But if you're in this grind of this like safe space of, okay, I'm getting a paycheck but I hate what I'm doing, but just hang in there because I'm going to get one day I'm going to have a retirement. But then like, okay, then you're 65 and you get your retirement, but now you need like 2 hip replacements and, you know, you can't actually do anything you plan to do this whole time. And like for us, it's like you get one life to live. Like we're 35 and 36 and we're like living the life we want. Is there, do we have goals? Do we have visions? Do we have dreams of other things?
Right.
Like, absolutely. But I think it's like we love what we're doing and we're like constantly wanting to get better at that. And I think for some people like listening, if you're doing something that you don't love at all and that you don't want to learn more about it, like that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but like it's time maybe to make a change and find something that you do love and that you can be passionate about and that you can keep learning and growing yourself, and professionally, if that's what you want,
Yeah.
I got hot during that. I had to take this off. I'm sweating over here, getting fired up about this. I just want everyone to live a good life.
We love it. No, that's awesome.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. What else is something that I learned tonight is, as much as I love Nate Marling, I think I am more of a fan of Chelsea. That's a lot of work to be able to let him do all that stuff.
Oh yeah, she's awesome. Chelsea is super cool. She's I'm trying to convince her to get in some more videos with Nate, but she's more of a behind the scenes camera person, not in front of the camera person.
Yeah.
But I think she'd be like amazing in some of the videos. So maybe we'll see more of her. We'll see.
Awesome.
I'll have to tell her if she's not watching this. She may see this eventually, or maybe I'll send it to her. And a bait maker's wife. That's what Fish Daddy.
Yeah.
That is her Instagram. Is a bait maker's wife. She ties a mean treble hook. He said. But yeah, everyone should message her and say, get in some of Nate's videos.
Oh my gosh, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Be like, thanks a lot. 800 messages.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
She'd be great.
So for people who are hearing, all about these people that we're talking about, go and check all of them out.
Mhm.
There's even a lot of cool people in the comments section today, so go and check that out. And for people who want to keep hearing all about you guys and the cool stuff that you're doing, can you share like some of your social media, your website, whatever you get out there?
Yeah, so our website is just www.epicbaitmolds.com. And then our Instagram is Epic Bait Molds. Our Facebook is Epic Bait Molds. Our email is epicbaitmolds@gmail.com. And our Facebook group that is a community of bait makers is called Epic Bait Makers. And that's just, you have to request to join it. Arthur Slater, Fish Daddy, he helps us run that. And that's super helpful and awesome. So yeah, come check that out and just see, if you're into it or whatever, just.
If you have any questions too, Instagram.
Oh yeah.
She answers everything.
I answer everything.
Email too. But.
Fish Daddy said YouTube too. I always forget that. It's horrible because that's like where we want to make more content. So YouTube, Epic Bait Molds as well. And then Jason's in some of Nate's videos, actually, if you want to check out like our collab stuff. I think one of them's like
Marling Baits.
It's Marling Baits on YouTube. He's on Instagram too, but one of them's called like something about a guest. It's a really good one. It's the 1.7 prey. I think you guys just crushed crappie on it.
Oh yeah, we caught so many crappie.
It's called something about an epic guest and a tiny bait or something. I don't know. I just butchered that. Anyway. Check him out. He's awesome if you haven't seen him. And all the people we mentioned. I feel like I mentioned a bunch of people.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know actually you mentioned a few groups that I'm not even in yet, so I'm going to be checking that out after this. And hopefully, we'll be seeing you guys there on YouTube. And otherwise, hopefully we'll be seeing the rest of you guys. Well, I was going to say next week on that episode of The Night Bite.
Night, everybody.